Namaste and a very, very good morning to all of you. In this video, we will be talking about Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient. Remember, Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient is an example of a parametric type of doing correlation. I repeat, it's an example of a parametric type of correlation. While we do Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient, there are four important assumptions that we need to look at when we perform Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient. Now, you may ask me a question, what are these four important assumptions that we need to look at while we do Pearson's correlation coefficient? The first and the foremost assumption that you need to keep in mind is that the two variables must be continuous. I repeat, the two variables that you will be including for your analysis must be continuous. Example of continuous variable could be distance from your house to office, which is measured in kilometers, right? Temperature, right, can be measured in Celsius scale or Kelvin scale. Height, weight, kg, height, weight, or any other variable which has units, right, wherein you can have meaningful decimals and such things. You can call it as continuous data, right? I've already given you 3 or 4 examples: age of a person, salary, mileage, sales, length, breadth, width, right? All these are example of continuous data, right? So when you have when you take two variables, ensure that both these variables are scale variables. This is very, very important. Don't take categorical variables while you want to do Pearson's correlation coefficient. Right, this is the first important assumption, that both the variables are scaled. What is the second important assumption? The second important assumption that you need to look at is that there should be linear relationship between the two variables. How do you do it? Use a simple scatter plot to plot y against x, or observe that you have a straight line kind of a relationship. When you use a scatter plot, if you see any unusual kind of a behavior, if you see a U-shaped pattern or an inverted U-shaped pattern or a S-shaped curve in the data, it's an example of non-linear relationship between the two variables. And Pearson's correlation coefficient does not work when the relationship is non-linear, right? Let's make a move on to the third important assumption. As far as the third important assumption is concerned, Pearson's correlation coefficient is very, very sensitive when you have outliers, right? When you have outliers are usually one or two data points which are either extremely large or extremely small. Their behavior is very, very different as compared to their neighbors, correct? So extremely unusual values, extremely large values, extremely small values can be called as outliers. And in the presence of outliers, your Pearson's correlation coefficient cannot be relied. So Pearson's correlation coefficient works best when outliers are absent. I repeat, Pearson's correlation coefficient works best when the outliers are absent. So in case you see any outliers, please make sure that you get rid of these outliers and then rerun the analysis. You'll be shocked to see that the analysis and the output conveys a totally different message. So this is the third important assumption that we need to take care of. What is the fourth important assumption that you need to look at? The fourth important assumption that you need to look at is the assumption of bivariate normality. That is, both the variables should follow approximate normal distribution. This is for statistical significance, right? When you are evaluating whether the correlation is statistically significant or insignificant, it is important that both the variables follow bivariate normality. To summarize the discussion that we've had, what are the important assumptions of Pearson's correlation? This is very, very important, both from an interview perspective as well as from an examination point of view. There are four important considerations that you need to pay attention to. The first assumption is the data type. Both the variables should be continuous. Don't take categorical variables. Second important assumption is that both the variables have a linear relationship. Third important assumption is that there are no outliers. The fourth important the fourth important assumption is that both the variables follow bivariate normality. So I'm going to illustrate this through SPSS using a simple data set. Let me go to the file menu. The second option here is open. Once you get into this open option, you see a variety of options. You can just click on the first item here, that is data. Let me just quickly grab a data set. This data set, as you can see here in front of you, is called as car sales data set. And you can just click on open. So this is the data set that I have. Now, as you can see here, you have various variables. You have different variables all related to the vehicle characteristics. You have the manufacturer of the car. You have the model of the car. You have other important details like sales and mileage, right? Resale value is given. What is the type of automobile? What is the type of vehicle is given? And other important descriptions about the vehicle like price, engine size, horsepower, wheelbase, width, length, curb weight. You have fuel capacity as well, which is given, right? Though you have a lot of variables here, I will be focusing my attention on two important variables, that is sales and mileage per gallon. I repeat, the focus of this analysis will be two important variables, sales and mileage per gallon, right? Now, the first most important criteria that you need to pay attention to is, ask yourself a question, is this variable, that is sales, a continuous variable or is it a discrete variable, right? The answer is very, very clear here. Sales is measured in thousands here, right? It reflects the dollar sales that we have here. So it is an example of a continuous variable. The second variable that we have is mileage per gallon. This again talks about fuel efficiency. This again is not a categorical variable, it's a continuous variable. So one of the first important assumptions, one of the first important prerequisites as far as running a Pearson's correlation coefficient is met here, it is satisfied. That is, both the variables should be scaled in nature, right? Now, we are interested in testing whether there is a relationship between these two variables or not. Now, to check whether there is a relationship between these two variables or not, what I need to do is basically set up my hypothesis. Let me quickly fire a PowerPoint presentation, right? We are looking at Karl Pearson's correlation. Now, you have to set your hypothesis, and we have to be slightly careful when you're framing the null hypothesis and the alternative. To recall the discussion that we have had in the earlier session, we have to keep in mind 6 different steps while we set up our hypothesis. The first being framing. The first step is framing the null hypothesis. In this example, you can just say correlation between the two variables, that is mileage per gallon and sales, right? You can close the bracket here, equals 0, right? We are just evaluating whether there is a correlation between two variables or not. So your null hypothesis is that there is no relationship between the two variables. Now, insofar as your alternative hypothesis is concerned, right? You can again say correlation between mileage per gallon and sales, right, is not equal to 0, right? This is my alternative hypothesis, wherein I'm saying it is not equal to 0. My null hypothesis is that the correlation between the two variables is equal to 0, and the alternative is that there is no relationship between these two variables. These are the first 2 steps when you are framing your hypothesis. Then I'll have to move on to the third step, which is my level of significance, right? Which I'm going to frame as which I'm going to set as 5% or 0.05. Remember, when you are framing, when you are setting the level of significance as 5%, the confidence with which you'll be reporting your result is 100 minus 5, which is 95%, right? We have already discussed that either you can choose 1% as your level of significance, or 5%, or 10%. There are other choices as well as 20% and 25%, not popularly used. Popularly used measures are either 1%, 5%, or 10%. Now, what is the test statistic that we will have to choose? We will have to choose small r, which is a notation for Pearson's correlation coefficient. So these are the first 4 steps. Set up your null, set up your alternative, your level of significance, and the 4th one be the test statistic. Now we will have to frame the decision criteria here. What is the decision criteria? Now, is a very simple rule of thumb. get the p-value. So far, we don't have the p-value. We need a software for it. We need either SPSS or we can use R programming or Python to get the p-value. Once you get the p-value, compare it with your level of significance, right? Right? If p-value is less than 0.05, you just simply decide to reject your null hypothesis. Very simple. If p is smaller than 0.05, you reject your null hypothesis, right? Now, what if you get the opposite? Right? There are two cases that you can think of. One is your p-value being less than 0.05. The second one is simply p-value being greater than 0.05, in which case we will decide not to reject H naught, right? In which case we will be deciding not to reject H naught, right? If P is less than 0.05, straight away reject your H naught. If P is greater than 0.05, then do not reject H naught, right? These are the first 5 steps. Last step would be your inference. We will have to look at the inference, right? Now, very important. What is the inference here? That becomes, we will have to just wait for what SPSS reports as the p-value. Now, based on the p-value, we can take a call whether to accept our null hypothesis or to reject our null hypothesis, right? Now, let me just wait and get the p-value. I'll go back to my SPSS, right? One of the first important assumptions is basically to check whether the two variables are scale, right? With this, I will run my correlation coefficient. Go to the analyze menu. You can see here, this is the analyze menu. It has a lot of statistical features. Very, very easy to get lost because you have so many options and features here, right? Please find the option correlate, right? This is the option that you need to look at. It is called as correlate. Within this, you have 4 options. I would like to draw your attention to what is called as bivariate correlation. Why bivariate? Because there are 2 variables which I will be supplying here, right? Please click on this. The moment you click on bivariate correlation, it fires a new window and all the variables in the data set will be displayed to in the canvas on the left-hand side. You can choose 2 of your variables, that is sales, right? This is one of the variables. And the second variable is mileage per gallon. These are the 2 variables for which I'm interested in finding the correlation, right? I will be ensuring that Pearson's correlation is clicked here. It's a 2-tailed test that we will be performing, right? So this is the setup, right? So you will have to choose 2 scale variables here. Please click on the option OK, all right? Now, what you observe here is that SPSS quickly runs the Pearson's correlation and it gives you the R value. Pearson's correlation value is reported as negative minus 0.017, right? It is minus 0.017, right? So there's a negative relationship between mileage and sales. That is what it says. Remember, Pearson's correlation coefficient tells you both the strength and the direction of the relationship, right? Now, since the value of Pearson's correlation is very, very close to 0, right? R value is very, very close to 0. It means that there is almost no relationship between the 2 variables. And this negative sign is very, very important. Negative sign says that as mileage or fuel efficiency increases, sales comes down. So there is an inverse relationship between the 2 variables, right? Something which is very difficult to understand at the first instance, right? Because normally we expect fuel efficient vehicles to have higher sales and such things, unless we are talking about sports cars, right? But anyway, the negative correlation value is something which we need to pay attention to, and it is slightly counterintuitive in this context. I'm very, very interested in the significance value here. Let me just double click and draw your attention to this value, which is 0.837. 0.837, right? Clearly 0.837. Let me just come back to my PowerPoint presentation, and you can see here the p-value of 0.837, correct? It is not this. Let me look at the second case. 0.837 is clearly greater than 0.05. So I will not reject my H0. I will not be reject my H0, right? So if I do not reject my H0, it automatically means that there is a weak negative correlation between the two variables. And this weak negative correlation is statistically insignificant. I repeat, there is a weak negative correlation between the two variables, and this weak negative correlation is statistically insignificant, right? This would be the end of our conclusion, right? But remember, I told you that there are 4 important assumptions, right? I just checked for the first important assumption, that is both the variables should be scale variables, right? Indeed, in my data, both the variables are scale variables, but I overlooked the 3 important assumptions, right? The assumption of linearity, I did not check. The assumption of no outliers, I have not checked. And finally, bivariate normality, I have not checked. And therefore, this p-value and all the analysis that we have done so far is not reliable. Right? You can't say that I have done a correlation between 2 variables, job done, happy ending. It's unfortunately not a happy ending, because we have overlooked the assumptions. We have overlooked the prerequisites of Pearson's correlation, right? So only the first of the prerequisites, that is to check whether, only the first of the prerequisites, that is both the variables should be scale. This is the only prerequisite that I have evaluated so far. Let us make a move on to the second important assumption of Pearson's correlation. What is the second important assumption? That we have a linear relationship between the variables. Did I check it? Answer is no, right? Did I check whether there are outliers? Answer is no. Did I check the condition for bivariate normality? The answer is no. I have overlooked these 3 assumptions. So let me just evaluate each of these things. How do you evaluate each of these things? There is a very, very simple way of evaluating this. Please go to the graphs menu. You can click on the graphs menu. Inside this graphs menu, you see a variety of options that SPSS provides. I would request you to click on the chart builder, right? Right at the top, you see an option which is called as chart builder. You can just click on this particular option. It shows a window. You can just click on don't show this dialog again and click on OK. I particularly like this window because it gives you a lot of customizable options here. You can really intervene and get the graph of your choice, right? Now you can see here, you see a variety of graphs here. I don't need to worry about all the graphs here. I will be just doing a simple scatter plot. I repeat, I'll just be doing a simple scatter plot to check whether there's a linear relationship and whether there are outliers or not, right? So what you can do is when you click on scatter plot here, SPSS does what? SPSS provides you 9 different types of scatter plots, right? You can see here in the first row, it has 6 followed by 3 in the second row. Totally, there are 9 different options. Now, if you just bring the cursor closer to the first option, the first preview, it says simple scatter, right? Let me just do this again for you. It is called a simple scatter. I'll be doing a simple scatter here, right? You have to double click here. Just double click on the simple scatter. It just gives you a, it is just asking you for y-axis and x-axis here, right? Now I've got the variable sales here, which I'll drag and drop along the y-axis, right? This is my y variable, and in the x variable, in the x-axis, what I'll do is I'll just drag and drop right inside this box, fuel efficiency. If you drag and drop this variable anywhere else, it will not be considered, right? So please be very, very careful for the benefit of those people who might have missed this. Just drag and drop it here, right? this is the place wherein you can just drag and drop, right? You drag it anywhere to the left side or the right side, that variable will not be included. So what I want to do is basically at a very high level, just do a simple scatter plot to evaluate whether there's a linear relationship between sales and fuel efficiency, one. And second one, are there any outliers in my data set? These are the two things which I'm going to look at, right? Please click on OK, right? SPSS very, very quickly gives you a scatter plot. We all are familiar with a scatter plot, right? You don't need me to explain a scatter plot. So I've got y-axis, in y-axis from 0 all the way up to 600. Right, this is my sales variable, and the x-axis from 0 all the way up to 45, I have fuel efficiency. Now, what do you observe when you look at this data? Right now, when I look at this data, I don't see any a non-linear pattern, right? I see basically a random scatter of the data points. I do agree that it is not exactly increasing, or it is exactly not decreasing. It may not be in a proper straight line, right? So if it is in a proper straight line, if the data points are arranged in a proper straight line, it could be either increasing or decreasing. You can conclude that there's a linear relationship, right? Secondly, if you see a U-shaped pattern or a inverted U-shaped pattern or a S-shaped pattern, any of those distinct patterns, you could say that there's a non-linear relationship. Now, when I look at the scatter of these data points here, I cannot see any U-shaped pattern or any non-linear pattern, so to speak, right? I don't see a U-shaped pattern or an inverted U-shaped pattern or a S-shaped pattern. I don't see any non-linear pattern here, right? If you see a non-linear pattern, right, you should be very, very careful, because Pearson's correlation coefficient does not work well with non-linear data, right? You have to try other options when you have non-linear relationship, right? Now, the second important thing to observe here is you see one stray case here, one extremely large value, which is staying out, right? And you also see close to your x-axis, there's another extreme case, which is isolated, and it is not part of the crowd here, right? You have a crowd of data points here, but this particular value has its own distinct identity. It's extremely large. So it is close to 45. I see a big value, and close to my y-axis also, I see a very, very distinct value, right? So this gives a clear indication to me that there are outliers in your data, right? Outliers are very, very dangerous. We need to be very, very careful with outliers, because when you have outliers in your data, and these are called as outliers because most of the points are scattered here. Only 2 of my points are scattered very, very far off, right? So these 2 cases are a clear sign that I've got outliers in my data, and Pearson's correlation coefficient does not do that well with outliers. What is the option what is the option that I have? I would like to firstly name these outliers. I'd like to see what is the name, what I like to label these outliers. Once I'm able to label these outliers, in the next step, I'll get rid of these outliers and rerun my Pearson's correlation, right? Now, how do I do that, right? You see this option here. This is called as dialog recall. SPSS, stores all the recent instructions that you have given to it, right? You can just click on this option. The last thing that I had done is chart builder. Let me just recall this particular dialog, right? This is the original setting that I had made, right? Now, what I need to do here is I've already supplied the y-axis and the x-axis. You can see a tab here called as basic elements. I'll not get into it. Besides this, there's another option which is called as groups/point ID, right? Group/point ID. What this does is it helps me label each and every data point in my scatter plot, right? I want to label each and every data point. Why? Once I'm able to name each and every data point, then in the next step, I can get rid of this particular case, right? You see a host of options here. You can just choose the last option here, which is called as point ID label. I repeat, it is called as point ID label. It labels each and every data point, right? You can see, you can just ignore the filter option, right? You can just focus on this particular option, point label variable. What you can do is you need a unique row identifier. Right? Had it been an employee data set, I could have taken master ID or customer ID, something of that sort. But this is not of that nature. You know, you don't have customer ID and such things. What you have is model of the vehicle, which is very, very unique. Right? It's a unique row identifier. It identifies the row distinctly, which means that there are no repetitions. So what I'll do is, please observe this step. I will just drag this and drop it in point label variable, which means that each and every circle that you see will be labeled based on the model of the vehicle. Once you do this, right, you've got the y-axis, you've got the x-axis, you've identified that there are outliers. Now it's the time for us to name the outliers. Let me just click on OK. Fantastic. Now you can just look at the new scatter plot, right? The earlier scatter plot looked like this, very, very bland, very dull. You just saw a few points which are being scattered. Now look at this particular graph here. It has named each and every data point here, right? You can see some of these models of vehicles: Explorer, Ranger, Taurus, right? You have Civic, Focus, Corolla. These are the things. But I would like to draw your attention to this point here, which is F series. F series, and one more case here, which is Metro. These two are outliers. I repeat, these two are outliers. That is F series and Metro. This is dangerous, right? Whether you have one outlier or two outliers, it's very, very dangerous because it has a tendency to pull the R value closer to it. It either inflates the R. In this case, when you have the R, when you have outliers, right? You will the correlation will be lesser, right? You will not be able to get the appropriate value for correlation, right? When you have extremely large values in the scatter plot, your correlation value will always be slightly on the lower side, not on the higher side. So this is something which is very, very important. Question is, what do I do out of this, right? If in a glass of milk, if you have 2 drops of poison, what do? You just get rid of the poison, right? You just have to cleanse it. You have to remove them, right? So when I've got these 2 outliers, I'll just do a quick fix. There are other ways of handling outliers as well, but for the purpose of this discussion, I want to get rid of this, right? Be very, very careful. F series, SPSS is case sensitive. So when you have F series, F is in caps, there's a hyphen here, and there's series, S again is in caps, right? Here, when you look at Metro, Metro is in caps. In Metro, only the letter M is in caps. The rest of the letters, the remaining letters are all in small letters. So this will help me when I specify a query. I'll quickly go to my data editor window, right? This is the window on which I'm working. What I'll do is I want to get rid of this. So I'll click on the data menu, right? I want to prepare my data, right? So in the data menu, you have a lot of options. You have at least 15, 20 different options. Right at the end, you have an option called as wake cases. Don't worry about wake cases as of now. But before that, last but one option is select cases. This is what I'm interested in because I want to select only the non-outliers, right? I want to get rid of the outliers. I'm just doing this. Please choose select cases, right? It fires up a new window, right? In this new window, you can see all cases, which means it's as good as not selecting anything. Your analysis will be run for every case. I will be specifying a query here, that is if condition is satisfied. So this will give me an opportunity to intervene and specify a query. If this query is satisfied, only then the case will be selected, else the case will be removed, right? So there's a if tab here right below this. Please click on this if tab, right? A new window will open up. Now, what is the what is the query that I need to specify here, right? Remember, the unique identifier is model. Enter this variable. right? You can just specify not equal to, right? You have equal to, besides that you have not equal to, right? Since this is string data, what I'll do is I'll have to use double quotes. If the data is not F series, F hyphen SERIES, if the data is not F series, correct? You can specify the AND, right? Or the ampersand operator. Then you can again type model. If the data set is not F series and the data set is not, since the second value that you want to type is metro, right? Remember, M is in caps. SPSS is very, very case sensitive. So we have to watch out for the spelling here. If there is one single mistake, SPSS will not give us the right right answer, right? So let me just make sure that I've just entered everything correctly. F series and metro. So these two cases I want to eliminate. So just click on continue, right? Remove this and choose the option, okay, right? Has it run? Yes, you can't see this. It has run all these, it is just giving you a syntax here, but let me just go to my data set, right? At the bottom right-hand side corner, it says filter on. So the query option is on, right? If I just sort of scroll down, right, you can see the 27th case is struck off because it's a metro, right? Which means that the query that I have specified earlier is working. So this particular case will be struck off. It will not be considered for further analysis. If I just further scroll down, you can see the 57th case, which is F series, again has been struck off. It will not be included for your analysis. So metro and F series, I've just removed these two cases here because my correlation coefficient will not be reliable in the presence of outliers. Now, what do I do next? What I'm going to do next is rerun my correlation. Rerun my correlation table again to impress upon my audience what is the impact of outliers on your data set, right? Go to the analyze menu. You're already familiar with this. Please click on the correlate option, right? This is the option that we are working on. Within this, you have bivariate. Please choose this option. I've got sales in 1000 and I've got fuel efficiency, right? All the previous settings will be as it is, right? The only change is that in my data set, I've got F series and metro, both of these cases are removed, right? And after removing these outliers, I'm rerunning the correlation table. Nothing is different as far as Pearson's correlation quotient is concerned, two-tailed test is concerned, and flagging significant relationship. Okay, hold your breath. Let me just click on OK. Wow. Just take a look at what do you see here, right? You are seeing a correlation value. Pearson's correlation quotient is 0.081. Question is, do you notice anything important here? Do you notice anything interesting here? To just jog your memory, let me show you the earlier correlation value when you had outliers, right? You remember this correlation value, right? This correlation value was minus 0.017. Look at this, it was minus 0.017. Now that you have gotten rid of these outliers, the minus sign has disappeared. You are seeing the presence of a plus sign here. You are seeing a positive correlation here, which can be appreciated because, right, in a normal context, in a usual context, as fuel efficiency increases, sales is expected to increase. That is what this table tells me, correct? Here it is, however, not very, very high, right? Because it is 0.081. It is hovering around the 0. The strength of the relationship is very, very weak, right? Remember, correlation value lies between -1 and +1, right? It has a range from -1 and +1. If the value is exactly +1, it means that there's a perfect positive relationship. If the value is exactly -1, it means that there's a perfect negative relationship. If the value is exactly 0, it means that both these variables are unrelated, right? I'm getting a value somewhere in the center, which means that the correlation is very, very negligible. It is very, very weak, right? The only difference that you're seeing here is that the negative sign has vanished. It's a clear indication that F series and metro were the ones which were sort of distorting my correlation value. Now that I have removed F series, now that I have removed metro, I'm getting the revised values for correlation, and that is, it is a positive relationship, weak relationship. Now I'm really interested in the significance value or the p value. What does the p value tell me, right? Remember, significance value is also called as the probability value. The value that I'm getting is 0.320. That is 0.320. Let me just open my PowerPoint. Now look at this, 0.320. I'm in the fifth step here. The probability value that I'm getting is 0.320, right? 0.320 has to be compared with 0.05, right? Clearly 0.320 is bigger than, it is larger than 0.05. So since it is larger than 0.05, I can conclude by saying that I will not be rejecting my H0. There is no sufficient evidence in the data set for me to reject my H0. And since there is no sufficient data, there is no sufficient evidence in my data to reject my H0, I will be going by my H0 and concluding that the correlation is very, very weak. It is insignificant, right? So just to recap, just to recall the journey, first is basically, we spoke about the assumptions. What are the different assumptions? Both the variables, right? Mileage and sales must be scaled. Are they scale? Of course it is. It's a scale variable. It is continuous data. I have looked at that. Secondly, do you see any distinct non-linear pattern? I didn't see any non-linear pattern, right? So I went ahead and did my correlation. Third important assumption, there should not be any outliers in the data set. These, there were outliers, I removed them, I reran the correlation table, and I was able to get the revised estimates for my correlation value, right? But I still cannot say that this is the final analysis, because there are four important assumptions. The last of the important assumptions is bivariate normality. I repeat, bivariate normality you have to check, because unless the variables are approximately normally distributed, your statistical significance and such things cannot be done appropriately, right? For for the purposes of statistical significance, to check whether statistically significant relationship exists or not, I have to pay attention to bivariate normality. So this is the last of the assumptions that I need to check, right? So I will still not infer anything, because I have not looked at bivariate normality. So I will just not infer anything as of now, okay? Right. Let me just go back to my data editor window, right? Now, how do I evaluate whether these two variables are normal or not, right? Sales and mileage, how do you evaluate whether these two variables are normal or not? You can just do a simple histogram or a PP plot or a QQ plot. SPSS also provides you other statistical tests like KS test, Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, or Shapiro-Wilk test, right? I'm not going to talk about tests now. Let me just use a simple graphical tool to check whether these two variables are normally distributed or not. Which are these two normal? Which is that test which I can use to check whether or not the two variables follow normality? I will have to use a PP plot, right? To do a PP plot, please go to your analyze menu, right? You have to go to analyze menu, right? Choose the second option here called as descriptive statistics. I repeat, in the analyze menu, please click on the descriptive statistics option. You have a variety of options here. Don't have to worry about all the options as of now. Please look at the PP plot, right? Popularly called as percentile plot. Some people call this as probability plot. It is going to tell me whether these two variables, sales and mileage per gallon, whether these two variables are normal or not, right? So let me just choose PP plot. Okay, a new window fires up, right? Right at the top, I've got the variable sales. Let me include it for analysis. I've got the second variable, mileage per gallon. I have included the second variable as well for my analysis. The test distribution is normal here, right? I'm making sure that the test distribution is normal because I want to check whether these two variables obey normal distribution or not, right? There are a lot of other options here. Please don't worry about these other options. Just ensure that there is normal option which is chosen here, right? Once you have done this, all that you need to do is click on the OK button. What do you see here? SPSS gives you some model description and case processing summary. Don't worry too much. It is just telling you how many cases were there. Around 155 cases were there for both these variables, right? Now, right? This is my PP plot, right? This is the PP plot wherein you are comparing the expected probability with the observed probability, right? You can see a thick line here. It's the 45-degree line, right? How do you interpret the PP plot, right? Don't worry too much about the formula and the theory at this stage. I'm just telling you in a very, very simple way, how do you check whether the variable follows normality or not? You see these circles here, right? It looks more like a bow here, right? Now, if these circles were to be lying along this 45-degree line, along this diagonal line, if each of these data points were lying along the diagonal line, then you could have had a big smile on your face and said, yes, my variable is normally distributed. Remember, the heading says normal PP plot of sales in 1,000. Question is, are these data points lying along the 45-degree line? Are they lying along the diagonal line? Right? I see a big gap. I don't think the distribution of the points are along the line. You see a big gap, which is a clear indication that the variable sales is not normally distributed. I repeat, sales variable is not normally distributed. I repeat, sales variable is not normally distributed, right? Which means that we have reached the dead end. Pearson's correlation coefficient and the significance value, right? When the variables do not obey normality, you will get distorted results. You will not get reliable results. You need to be very, very careful with this, right? So this is as far as my first variable is concerned, right? Let me just try my luck with the second variable. What is my second variable? Now, again, the same rule of thumb obeys. The same rule of thumb applies here. When you look at the distribution of the data points here, if they are lying along the 45-degree line, if they are lying along the diagonal line, you can be happy and conclude that the variable is normally distributed, right? Now, I do see that there is some departure. A few stray points, data points here are off diagonal, but most of the data points are lying along the diagonal, right? Since most of the data points are lying along the diagonal, you can say that the variable fuel efficiency is approximately normally distributed. I repeat, fuel efficiency is approximately normally distributed, but the other variable sales is not normally distributed. Now, what do you do from here, right? If the variable sales is not normally distributed, it becomes a bit difficult to proceed ahead, right? Now, statistics does not leave you helpless. Statistics offers different solutions at this stage. If the original variable sales is not normally distributed, what do? You can take certain transformation, right? Sometimes you can take a reciprocal of the variable. Sometimes you can take a log transformation, right? Sometimes you can take other transformations as well, right? Depending upon the kind of data, one of these transformations will work, right? Now, since we have continuous data, many times continuous data, upon log transformation, you take the variable, do a simple natural log transformation, and then verify for normality once again. It tends to be normal. It may not be necessarily so, but sometimes it is so, right? If this transformation does not work, I have to, fall back on, I have to choose, I have to experiment with other transformation, right? So what I'll do is, let me just take a log transformation for this. I've got my data. I've come to my data editor window, right? I've got sales here, right? This is a problem variable, right? And to the right side, right, there is a filtered column here, right? Fine. So what I'll do is I'll go to the transform menu, right? I will be using a log transformation here. So let me just click on the transform button here. In the transform menu, you again see a host of options here. Please don't be intimidated with this. It gives you a lot of options and features. Sometimes it can be intimidating if you are a newcomer, if you're new in the world of SPSS. So here I'll choose the option compute variable. The very first option is compute variable. It allows you to compute a new variable, right? Please choose this option. So it fires a new window, right? You see two boxes here. One is called as a target variable, right? You can simply say log sales, right? Log sales. One mistake that people usually make here is they give a space here that is log space sales. Remember, space and such things are not allowed, right? When you're declaring a variable name, there can't be space and such things. So you have to just type it as log sales, right? Now, numerical expression, right? Here, I will be typing a function which is caps L and small m, which is natural logarithm. Open a bracket here, right? Within this, you can just enter sales, right? Close the bracket here. What am I doing here? In the numerical expression, what is happening is that the function natural logarithm will be applied on the original variable sales, and the new values for sales, which is log sales, log transformed sales, will be stored in log sales. A new variable called as log sales will be created, and in this new variable log sales, the log transformed values for sales will be stored, right? So this is the new variable that I'm interested in. I'll just click on OK. Okay, in the output window, you don't see much, right? You can do an Alt tab, go back to your data editor window, and scroll to the extreme right side. What do you see here? See something very interesting here. You see the new variable log sales appearing here, right? Now, why did I have to do it? I had to transform the variable because my original variable sales was not normally distributed. Now, how do I proceed from this stage, right? Now, I have to basically evaluate. Merely because you have taken a transformation, there's no guarantee that the transformed variables follow normal distribution, right? So I'll have to basically verify whether the log transformed values obey normal distribution or not, right? So once I have this variable, I will go to analyze, descriptive statistics, right? You're already familiar as to how you can check for normality. The answer is ppplot, right? Click on this. You have the two variables here, right? I'll just reset here because I don't need the original variables, right? Look at the last variable, the newly computed variable, that is log sales. You have to look at the new variable log sales. Enter this in the variables list, right? And please choose OK here. Again, it is just giving me basic information, right? This is how the new variable and the distribution of the pp plot for the new variable looks like, right? Let me just jog your memory by comparing it with the old variable. This is my old sales variable. If you can just see here, all right, if you take the raw data as it is, the distribution is nowhere near normal because the data points are not lying along the diagonal, right? Let me just try my luck with the log transform sales. Look at the distribution here. Look at how beautifully log sales basically comes closer and closer to the diagonal line, right? It's almost as if they are hugging each other, right? They're very, very close. I do agree that some of you may raise your eyebrows and say there are a lot of data points which are not exactly on the diagonal. I do get that point. Real life data may not be exactly on the diagonal. Many times each and every data point that you see may not be lying along the 45-degree line of the diagonal. You have some kind of departures from normality. Therefore, what we are looking to achieve is approximate normality. Closer the better, right? But you can't, very difficult to expect the data to be exactly normal, right? But when I compare this variable with the earlier variable was definitely not normal, but this is the magic that happens, right? The moment you take log transformed variables, it follows normality, right? More or less normal, right? So now I'm in a very curious situation. I'm in a very interesting situation because log sales follows normality. And to recall, fuel efficiency also follows normality. Since both these variables follow normality, now instead of using the original sales variable, I'll be using the log transformed variable of sales to do correlation, right? I'll kick out the original variable sales. I'll include log transformed sales and fuel efficiency for further analysis. How do I do this? Let me just fire open my data editor window. I'll be going to analyze menu. I've got the correlate option here. This is the correlate option here. In this, I'll choose the first option, which is bivariate, right? You're familiar with this setting, sales and fuel efficiency. We have already looked at this, right? I will kick this variable out. I don't need sales variable now. Instead of sales, I will choose log sales. Why log sales? For the simple reason that log sales obeys normality, mileage obeys normality. The original variable sales did not obey normality. Since both these variables obey normality, there is bivariate normality, and for statistical significance, these two variables are more reliable than the original variable, right? The remaining settings remain as it is. I'm not going to make a change here. Now we can just choose OK, right? Very, very interesting, right? Do you notice anything fascinating here, right? Now, this is the new table for correlation that we have got, right? Let me just take you back to the earlier correlation table. You had 0.081. 0.081, you had positive correlation. But look at the significance value for the earlier table, 0.320, bigger than 0.05. Since it is bigger than 0.05, in the last stage you concluded you accepted the null hypothesis and concluded that there is no significant relationship between the two variables, right? Please compare this correlation table, wherein both the variables did not obey normality, to the latest table that we have, that is both the variables have bivariate normality. Both the variables follow approximate bivariate normality. Now the correlation table, now the correlation value has jumped up slightly. Now it is 0.162. I repeat, it is 0.162. Right? It is 0.162. Earlier you had 0.08. It is not a big jump, but nevertheless, it is a jump, 0.162. You also see a star mark here, and the explanation for this particular star mark, asterisk mark, is given here. It says that correlation is significant at 5%, right? So this correlation is significant at 5%, 0.046. When you have the significance value reported as 0.046. Very, very interesting, right? Let me just pick up this value of 0.046, which is my p-value. Let me go to my decision criteria. What is the p-value that I have obtained? 0.046, right? Am I right? 0.046, right? Our decision criteria, you have two cases. You have to compare the p-value with 0.05, right? Either it is smaller than 0.05 or it is bigger than 0.05, right? I clearly see that 0.046 is not bigger, right? So I can't write it here, right? I'll just cut this and paste it here. 0.046 is smaller than 0.05, correct? 0.04, look at the second, in the second decimal, you have 4 here, and here you have 5 here. 0.046 is smaller than 0.05. So in which case, what is the decision that you will be adopting? The decision that you will be adopting is to reject the null hypothesis. I repeat, you will have to reject the null hypothesis, right? So your null hypothesis will go, right? So for the first time, you have a very curious situation wherein the null hypothesis is gone. You will be canceling your null hypothesis, right? How has this happened, right? You looked at 4 important assumptions. Both the variables should be scaled. There should be a linear relationship. Thirdly, no outliers. Fourthly, bivariate normality. Once you go through these 4 steps, now you can be more confident with Pearson's correlation and the significance value hence obtained. Now, you can conclude by saying your inference will be, since the p-value is less than 0.05, you can just say we reject H naught. We reject H naught, right? We reject H naught and conclude. What do we conclude? We conclude that there is a significant relationship. There is a significant relationship between the 2 variables, right? So this is our inference that there is a significant relationship between the 2 variables, right? Now, hang on. Now, in this particular case, we were lucky that after transformation, the variables obeyed, the variables obeyed normality, right? Many instances, tomorrow, if you pick up a new data set after transformation, the data set might not obey normality, right? The data might not be scale, right? You may have ordinal data, right? So in case you do not have scale variables, right? In case bivariate normality and such things are not obeyed, both the variables do not obey bivariate normality. And in case you have a lot of outliers and such things, correct? And you have tried your best to work with these constraints, but you're still not able to make any sense of it, right? When these assumptions are broken, when these assumptions are violated, and you still want to look at correlation, what is the other alternative that you have? The other alternative that you have is a non-parametric alternative, right? Karl Pearson's correlation is a parametric kind of correlation wherein you have certain assumptions and such things, right? You have to look at the non-parametric alternative when these 4 assumptions do not hold good. What is the non-parametric alternative? That non-parametric alternative is what is called as Spearman's rank correlation. I repeat, Spearman's rank correlation, right? When you have Spearman's rank, when you have non-linearity which is inbuilt in the data, or when you have too many outliers, when the variables do not obey normal distribution and such things, what you can do is you can just look at the alternative test for this, right? How do you do that? You can just go to Analyze, Correlate menu, and you can look at bivariate, unclick Pearson's correlation. You can choose the option Spearman's correlation, right? Now here we will be looking at the ranked cases. So the effect of outliers are nullified, because if there is a case for F series and metro, which is very, very large, 45 and 600 and such big values, we will be looking at the position, not the actual value, right? So, so this will basically work on the ranked cases, not the original data points. And therefore the effect of outliers and such things will be very, very negligible, right? And it does not make any, these are non-parametric tests are popularly referred to as distribution-free tests. I repeat, non-parametric tests are distribution-free tests. So Spearman's rank correlation basically says, I don't care whether the distribution is normal or not normal. I operate under the presumption that that I do not know the distribution, right? I don't care whether the distribution is normal or not, right? So you can choose the Spearman's alternative, and you can just choose OK, right? So you can just see here, we have taken log sales here, and fuel efficiency, you are getting 0.05, which is slightly larger than, 0.05, right? But one question that might pop up in your mind is if you're saying that these are distribution-free tests, why should I take sales? Why not consider the original variable sales itself? It's a good question. We can try with original variable sales itself. So let me go to dialog recall, bivariate correlation, and instead of log sales, I will just choose sales in 1000. This is just for demonstration purpose that I'm showing you. Spearman's rank correlation, right? When I don't care about the distribution, I don't care about bivariate normality and outliers and such things. You can just choose this Please click on OK, right? So you can just see Spearman's rank correlation works like this, right? With Spearman's rank correlation, the notation here is not small r, it is rho. I repeat, when it comes to Pearson's correlation, you use the notation small r, right? You saw earlier, right? The notation was small r. When it comes to Spearman's rank correlation, the notation here is rho. And you're able to see a positive correlation, 0.158. Interestingly, it is very, very close to what your 0.158, right? Very, very close to what your Pearson's correlation also said, right? Pearson said 0.16, and my Spearman's rank correlation is saying 0.158, very close to that value. But the significance value is slightly, very, very slightly, it is exceeding 0.05, right? So that is the difference that you see between Pearson's correlation and non-parametric alternative, that is Spearman's rank correlation, right? To summarize the discussion that we have got multiple correlation, we have got different types of correlation, but for the purpose of this discussion, I'm just confining myself to Pearson's correlation and Spearman's rank correlation. Pearson's is a parametric type of correlation. Spearman's rank correlation is a non-parametric alternative to Pearson's correlation coefficient. And as far as your Pearson's correlation coefficient is concerned, there are 4 important assumptions: linearity, bivariate normality, scale variables, and the final assumption, no outliers, right? These are certain prerequisites, right? Spearman's rank correlation, you can have outliers. These are distribution free tests. It works very well. Even if the data is non-linear, it basically is able to transform and give you the results, right? Now, this is as far as your correlation is concerned, right? Now, one very curious thing, just sort of intellectual curiosity. If you're curious, you can see here that you've got a type. In type, if I just click on the drop-down menu, there are 2 types of vehicles here, right? Automobiles and trucks. You've got automobiles and trucks, correct? Now, one thing that you might want to think is from a business point of view, do you want to club automobiles and trucks? Do you want to club the characteristics of automobiles and trucks and do correlation in one shot, right? Which is what we have done. We have included both these sets of vehicles, that is automobiles as well as trucks, and we have proposed one correlation table, right? Which may not be the right thing to do. I was showing you just because it's a demonstration, but ideally speaking, you may want to split the data you may want to split the data set, right, in such a way that for automobiles, you're doing a separate correlation table, and for trucks, you're doing a separate correlation table, right? Now, how do we do this, right? There is a second episode. Now, this is Karl Pearson's correlation for the entire data set. Right? Now, what I can do is I can just copy paste the same thing here, right? Now this in the second slide, I will not be including the entire data set. What I will be doing here is I will be looking at automobiles separately, right? The hypothesis, everything will remain the same, right? I can copy paste the slide and create the third slide. And my third slide, I'll say, I will be not looking at automobiles in the third slide. I will be looking at trucks, right? So second and third, right? Now, I do not know whether these hypotheses basically will stay or not. So I'll just remove these changes, correct? For both of these things, I'll have to sort of remove these changes, right? My null hypothesis, the statement remains the same. Alternative statement remains the same. Level of significance will be 5%. Test statistic, right? We have looked at the assumptions and such things. So let us stick to Pearson's correlation itself, right? So I'll look at R. Now, p-value, right? I have not yet obtained the p-value for automobiles and trucks, right? Let me just do a analysis in one shot and finish it off. How do I do this? Just open your data set, right? You've got your data set. Now, if you want to just split the data set into 2 portions, SPSS provides a very, very curious option. SPSS provides a very useful option, which is called a split file, right? At the bottom, right? You have the second option from bottom, right? Your weigh cases, which is the last option. Select cases, the one before this is split file, right? Choose this option, split file, right? Choose this option, split file. The first option is analyze all the cases, do not create groups. I will choose the third option, organize the output by groups. I want separate analysis. I want a separate correlation for trucks. I want a separate analysis for automobiles, correct? So I will have to choose the variable type, choose the type of the vehicle. What this does is it just bifurcates my entire data set, right? I'll have one separate data set with only trucks. I've got another data set. I will have another data set which has only automobiles, correct? Do this and please specify this particular variable, vehicle type, or any categorical variable, and choose OK, right? You can't see much in the output window. So let me just fire open the data editor window. I hope you can see right at the bottom, it pops up a message. It shows a message saying split by type. So this is an indication that the split file option is on, and whatever analysis you do, you'll get two separate outputs, one exclusively for your automobiles and the other exclusively for your trucks, right? Two separate analysis, right? I will just go to my analyze, correlate, right? You're familiar with this navigation, and then choose bivariate, analyze, correlation, bivariate, right? So you've got fuel efficiency and sales in 1,000, right? I'll unclick Spearman and I'll choose Pearson, right? Why am I so confident? Because both these variables, I've removed outliers. I've ensured that they are scaled. I've ensured that there is not much of nonlinear pattern and such things, and bivariate normality is anyway obeyed, right? So linearity, both these are scale variables, no outliers, right? And of course, bivariate normality, right? So I can be confident and I can just click on OK. What do you see here? Look at the heading here. It says vehicle type is equal to automobile. For automobile, you have the correlation table, and this is exclusive for automobiles. And the one below this is for trucks. So you're getting two different correlation table, right? Let us carefully examine what is happening as far as automobiles is concerned, right? Now, when you look at automobiles, fuel efficiency and sales, you see two star marks here, right? You see two small star marks, and also 0.328. The correlation has, almost doubled, right? Let me just show you the correlation that you obtained earlier. It was 0.162 for the entire data set. When you did Pearson's correlation, you got 0.162, right? Roughly, when you multiply 0.162 by 2, I think you should be able to get around 0.32, right? So you're getting around double the correlation for automobiles, and it is significant, right? It is significant even at 1%. It is significant at 1%. Very, very important finding. And the significance value you can see here is smaller than 0.000. You're getting a correlation value of you're getting a significance value of 0.000, right? I'll quickly open up my PowerPoint. This is my automobiles slide, right? The p-value that you have obtained just now is how much? The p-value is 0.000. We have had this discussion earlier. It may not be exactly 0.0. In the 15th or the 16th decimal somewhere, you may have a digit, but you don't need to worry. You can just look at the first 2 or 3 decimals, right? First 3 decimals, it's a clear indication that it is clearly less than 0.05. And therefore, I will have to kill my null hypothesis, right? I will have to stifle my null hypothesis. I will cancel my null hypothesis and conclude that since the p-value is less than 0.05, we reject H0 and conclude that there's a significant relationship between the two variables, right? Both these variables have a significant relationship, right? So it means what? When you are an automobile driver, for automobile drivers, they are really concerned about fuel efficiency and such things. They are really bothered about fuel efficiency as a factor. So you can expect a high value of sales, you can expect your sales to increase if you provide fuel efficiency as an attribute, right? So this is the conclusion that I can draw, and I can propose that there is a positive relationship between the two variables. Now let me make a move on to the second. Let me make a move on to the next slide. Now here we are looking at the correlation for truck drivers. Let me just look at vehicle type is equal to truck. Here again, you see a small correlation value, which is 0.118. By the way, 0.328 is also not very, very high. It is not a very strong relationship, but nevertheless, it is larger than the earlier value, right? But for truck drivers, what do you see here? 0.118, right? It is a small value, and the P value is 0.473. Compare the correlation significance for automobiles with trucks, you see a completely different conclusion. Here it is significant, here it is insignificant. Why do I say that? Because the significance value that you're obtaining is 0.473. I repeat, 0.473, right? So for truck drivers, you can just come here, and the P value you can just type as 0.473, right? 0.473 is clearly larger than 0.05, right? Since your P value is bigger than 0.473, since your P value of 0.473 is larger than 0.05, what you can do is you will be concluding by saying that you do not have sufficient evidence to reject your H0. And therefore, you will be concluding by saying that we do not reject our H0. We do not reject our H0 and conclude that there is a significant relationship. There is, I have to remove this, sorry. There is no significant relationship between the two variables, right? So the first slide speaks about the relationship for the entire data set. Second one, we were able to partition and look at the correlation table only for automobiles. And the third one, the correlation table only for trucks. So this completes the presentation for today. We looked at the assumptions of Pearson's correlation. Remember 4 important assumptions. Both the variables should be scaled. Linearity must be there, right? No outliers, and bivariate normality must be there. Then you look at Pearson's correlation coefficient. What if these assumptions do not hold good? We also saw how to transform. We looked at an alternative in the form of Spearman's rank correlation. I thank you very much for watching my video. I would request you to like and subscribe my channel. I request you to share my channel with your friends and relatives. I will see you in my next video.